So in keeping with the overall theme of the conference, what I want to talk about here today is from the point of view of a startup company. So my company is Iricent, and as a startup, what's our perspective on innovation? What does innovation mean? Also, in keeping with the overall stream, part of our innovation involves working with a third-level institution in this country. So what I'd like to talk to is just a little bit about our experience and how we worked with them. And some of that would sort of complement what you heard from Richard Stokes, anyone who was here at the earlier talk. So just to talk about the definition of innovation, if you like. So Peter Drucker in 2002 wrote an article on this, and he looked at the different types of innovation. And in fact, this is online, so you can find it easily enough. And he looked at a whole set of different ways innovation can occur. I'll just go briefly through them, because one of the ideas that we see, or one of the things that we need to address, is the fact that innovation isn't just a simple one thing or one item. So in terms of unexpected occurrences, incongruities, process needs, industry and market changes, demographic changes, changes in perception, new knowledge. For example, incongruities have to do with something that doesn't quite fit an overall pattern. And an example there would be shipping, where a change in understanding was that the shipping, a lot of the focus was on reducing the cost of ships at sea, making ships travel faster, and what they realised actually that the real cost was the time that the ships spent in port, and that introduced innovation in terms of roll on and roll off, and ultimately the container system that we have now, and that became the real focus in terms of reducing cost. If you look at industry and market changes, what's interesting about this one, and there's a great book by an author called Scott Christensen, it's called The Innovators Dilemma, that actually deals with this particular type of innovation. And that's where there's some change in terms of new equipment or new technology, and what affects that is that new companies can emerge and take that space, and established companies that are well aware that this technology is emerging can't actually address it very effectively because they are spending all the time defending what they already own, and therefore they won't counterattack, they won't actually take that space, because that would actually cannibalize their own business. So new companies can thrive unchallenged in that space. If you look at demographic changes, in Japan, one of the changes that occurred were related to education. So their workforce became more and more educated, and that meant that there were less availability of blue-collar workers, and consequently that drove the need for robotics, which revolutionized Japanese industry. Process needs, the linotype was key to allowing you to produce newspapers in volume. So out of a change in the need to produce newspapers in much higher volume, you needed that technology to support that change. Okay, and new knowledge is really an example of probably what most people associate with innovation, and that is just some new insight or new understanding of an old problem. But what's most important about that aspect is, in fact, in many cases, there are multiple pieces of knowledge that contribute to an innovation. It isn't just one thing, it's actually a whole stream of things that collaborate together and create an innovation collectively as a unit. Okay, that's kind of, I suppose, the background. This particular area that Iricent works in relates to telecoms networking, which you may not be aware of, but has actually become a big problem. Telecoms networks are maxed out and in need of an upgrade. There really hasn't been a lot of any real fundamental change. There's been a lot of little step increments, but telecoms networks are still very, very similar to the way they were 30 years ago. And despite the fact there's been an enormous revolution around the kinds of services that are supported by these networks, such as the internet, obviously, and the World Wide Web. Everyone should probably at this stage be aware of the cloud, the idea that basically you can access remote computing resources, and that you can basically create and destroy computing resources almost on demand. And the key technology enabler for this is actually virtualization. Hardware becomes, in effect, software, and that brings great flexibility. You can create hardware, or virtual hardware, you can add to it, you can reconfigure it, and you can do all of this in seconds. So you can change your features, you can increase your capacity on demand. So this allows you to do things that wouldn't even be conceivable in an older environment, where you would actually have to send someone to produce, to basically install new hardware and reconfigure that hardware. So there are whole sets of things that you wouldn't even consider doing. There are kind of three dimensions to that. There's the compute part, so that's the actual hardware computation, if you like, the ability to solve problems. There's the storage aspect, so that relates to data and information. And then there's the networking. So with compute and storage, definitely this has helped, but networking has lagged. So networking still tends to depend on hardware, still tends to depend on proprietary solutions. So the benefits haven't been realized as much there, and that leads to cost. But there are two things that are happening more recently which are contributing to a change in this and will bring the same types of benefits to networking as you have with compute and with storage. One of them is called software-defined networking. This originated in Stanford and Berkeley 6 to 8 years ago. And really what it does is allows you to control your network from a central location. So no longer do you go out and configure your individual routers or network devices on a case-by-case example, and no longer is the intelligence, if you like, in terms of making routing decisions, actually located in those devices. It's located in a central location, and all these devices are instructed from that. So it means effectively that you can run software and make software decisions and software configurations which influences your hardware, but you don't actually have to physically go to those individual locations to implement them. Kind of building on both cloud and SDN, particularly operators, telecoms operators and service providers began to think, how could they leverage the benefits of SDN, how could they leverage the benefits of cloud? They were seeing all of this innovation happening in the internet and in the data world, but in terms of their own networks, they weren't really realizing that. So for carriers to succeed, for operators and service providers, they like to see things standardized, they like to see a market created where lots of different players can come in and provide. So bearing that in mind, they collaborated together to create what is called network functions virtualization, which is basically takes everything you have in cloud and everything you have in terms of networking and the compute and storage and puts a framework on it in which manufacturers and vendors can create products that interwork with each other and that they can use them to build their networks. So if you look at these two pieces and put them together, then you can see that the networking problem in particular is about to be solved. So what I want to talk for in terms of the rest of the presentation is to look at how do we approach innovation. My title was Innovation Requires Multiple Tactics. So from our perspective, the first thing is to actually enter an area in which a lot of innovation is already present. So somewhere that's fast moving, that provides an opportunity for a small company to enter and find particular niches which are easy to exploit and which leverage our particular skills, knowledge, or opportunities. And so we picked both of these areas, SDN and NFV. We then looked at identifying opportunities within the sector and then tailor our response to each of the opportunities in the right way. So rather than just taking one approach in terms of, okay, we're going to deliver a product for this particular opportunity, and for that opportunity we look at what is the right way to deal with each of these. So we saw an opportunity to offer something as a service, and I'll talk about that in the next slide, within the NFV space. So we decided not, if you like, to develop a product within the NFV space, but rather to partner. We did see a product opportunity that could leverage SDN, and so we're working on that and developing that. And then during this time of transformation, we also saw opportunities to actually sell our own expertise, consultancy, and services to the many people out there who are struggling to relate to this area and to see how that was going to affect their business how is that going to affect their networks, and what they should do. So this would relate to both consulting services and integration services. So there are kind of three aspects, and we're approaching them in three very different ways. So I'll just talk about the first two there. So the first one is something, and apologies for the acronyms, something called Management and Orchestration, which has the abbreviation of MANO. This is part of NFV, and it basically sits, it's not absolutely mandated, but in practical terms it sits on something called OpenStack, which is a cloud that you could deploy in your own company network. So most people are familiar with clouds like Google or Amazon. These are clouds that are operated and manufactured and created to their proprietary standards, if you like. OpenStack is an open cloud environment that anyone can take for free, and if you're prepared to put in the work in creating the hardware infrastructure, then you can build your cloud upon that. So in keeping with the notion of developing NFV in an open way, in a standards-based way, OpenStack is generally the preferred choice, but not necessarily the only choice. So the aspect and the approach that Iricent took from that is to actually offer MANO as a service. So rather than actually buying one, that you would actually just basically sit, take a space, as it were, on a hosted service. And this allows the benefits of this to be offered to a broader market, because normally these would come with high capital costs, and therefore this allows other customers to basically enter this market space and use this kind of technology. In doing this, we're supported by a company called Amion, and again, this is part of the innovation approach. We don't actually build this, we don't even necessarily provide the integration services in-house. We look for people who can provide those specific skills from outside our company. And also we build it from third-party equipment suppliers. The product space we're working, which is aimed at software-defined networking, is something called AppNos, which is Application Prioritization and Network Optimization Service, which is aimed at providing application-level controls for quality of service. So if you can imagine, you have a company network and you have lots of different services running on it, some of which are business critical, some of which perhaps like YouTube or less so, or Facebook. And so what this allows you to do is to put in a system, a standard piece of equipment, not having any real detailed knowledge of networking or IT, and set it up in a way that will ensure that your business critical services will receive preference in the network, and that the bandwidth won't be taken by less critical services. So you won't experience this kind of broken up type Skype call, the type of Skype calls that you sometimes get because other people are making use of the network, which is taken from the resources that you need. And it does it, as I said, without you really needing to know any kind of real technology, and it allows you to, and it doesn't require you to put in expensive or complicated installations within your own network. All of this is managed from outside the network. This particular product, again, we're not developing it using our own people, we're actually developing it in conjunction with TSSG, who are part of the Waterford Institute of Technology. And just looking at both of those cases, we looked for innovation partners to support us in this work. We spoke to a number of academic institutions. We found TSSG were the most knowledgeable about this area, and they also had experience in related technology areas. And so we embarked on a program with them. They were very helpful as well in terms of helping us towards funding. So essentially we would approach them first, and they would have recommended particular directions that we could have taken the right funding approaches at each stage, let's say. In terms of Amion, we sought an integration partner. They're 10 plus years in business. They have great relevant experience in terms of strong cloud, DevOps, and they're also OpenStack experience. They're partners in Mirantis, who are one of the global recognized providers of OpenStack consultancy. And they provide professional services, consultancy, integration, and delivery. So, just diving into the TSSG side, because I thought that might be more interesting. This is essentially the funding we went through. So we started with an innovation voucher We then went to a proof of concept with a second innovation voucher, and then we went through a contracted development phase, and finally ending with, we've just commenced an innovation partnership program, which has just been approved by Enterprise Ireland. And as I said, Richard Stokes talked about this earlier, and I would definitely agree with a lot of the things he said in terms of it's a relatively lightweight, relatively easy process to going through, and it's quite attractive in terms of the funding. Okay, and the only reason I put that up, obviously you recognise me now, Gerard Byrne is also present here, so if you want to get to him, say hello. So just to conclude, for us, simple innovation is not enough. We need to take multiple approaches towards innovation and adapt them for each opportunity. So, thank you very much.
So I think in the interest of time, we probably skip questions.
Yeah.
That's okay. So